The clock on Marcus Ellison's dashboard blinked 9:02 a.m. as he eased his car into a parking space outside the Dorchester Municipal Courthouse. He sat there for a beat, gripping the steering wheel, willing the second hand to slow down. He hated being late. As an assistant district attorney, punctuality was more than habit. It was armor. But this morning, his armor had cracks. The day was supposed to be simple. A property boundary dispute involving his late father's workshop. A case so small it felt almost insulting. But the workshop was sacred ground. Marcus had grown up there, the smell of sawdust and oil mixing with his father's gravelly laughter. He wasn't about to let a clerical error strip that away. He buttoned his charcoal suit jacket, adjusted his tie, and stepped out into the sharp autumn air. His phone buzzed before his shoes even hit the pavement. A message from Dana, his paralegal. Judge Hardwell doesn't forgive lateness. Be careful. Marcus exhaled through his nose. He'd heard the stories. Judge Samuel Hardwell, white hair, iron stare, a reputation for cutting defendants and attorneys alike to ribbons over the smallest missteps. Still, Marcus had faced worse. Murder trials, corruption hearings, human trafficking rings. This was a zoning error. It should have been nothing. Inside, the courthouse smelled of burnt coffee and stress. The beige walls sagged with decades of bureaucracy, bulletin boards crowded with notices no one read. Lines of anxious citizens clutched tickets, citations, and manila folders as if their lives depended on them. Marcus checked his watch again. 9:07 a.m., barely enough time. He followed the signs down a narrow hall, heart ticking in rhythm with his steps. Courtroom 3, Judge S. Hardwell. The brass letters glinted in the dim fluorescent light. Marcus pushed the door open, scanning the room. Hardwell's courtroom was fuller than he expected. Working-class families, tired mothers with toddlers, a handful of lawyers in wrinkled suits. Marcus slid into a seat near the back, opened his folder, and began reviewing his exhibits. Then the door at the front creaked open. Judge Hardwell entered. Tall, broad-shouldered, his robe hanging loose like an executioner's cloak. His eyes, a sharp, cold blue, swept the room, cataloging everything and everyone. The chatter died instantly. "All rise," the bailiff called. The courtroom obeyed. The silence that followed was so complete, Marcus could hear the faint hum of the overhead lights. Hardwell began the docket like a metronome. Names, citations, fines. Each case dispatched in minutes, his voice steady, detached. Marcus watched carefully. A man in a rumpled blazer slipped in late, quietly taking a seat. No reaction from the bench. Moments later, a woman in jeans and a hoodie hurried inside, clutching a stack of papers. Again, no reprimand. Marcus's pulse quickened. He made a note. Then it came. Case number 2041, Marcus Ellison. Marcus stood, shoulders squared, folder in hand, and approached the podium. Hardwell's gaze tracked him like a hawk's. "You're late, Mr. Ellison," the judge snapped before Marcus could speak. "Do you imagine the court bends itself to your schedule?" Marcus lifted a hand, palm open, a gesture of respect. "Your Honor, I apologize. I was tied up with an urgent case this morning." "Spare me," Hardwell cut in. "This court operates on discipline. If you can't grasp that, perhaps you've chosen the wrong profession." The words struck like a whip. Marcus felt the room tighten, dozens of eyes fixed on him. His instincts screamed to defend himself, but he steadied his tone. "Your Honor, I respect this court's time. May I present my case?" Hardwell leaned back, his lip curling. "Not before I address your contempt. You will pay a fine of $1,000 immediately." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Marcus's jaw locked, but his expression didn't flinch. He'd seen enough trials to know. The judge was daring him to react. "Understood, Your Honor," Marcus said evenly. Hardwell nodded with smug satisfaction, then waved a hand. "Proceed if you must." Marcus opened his folder, laying out documents. This property has been in my family for decades. The recent reassessment increased taxes by 40% without notification or justification. These are the city's prior records. But Hardwell wasn't listening. His eyes had glazed, his pen tapping impatiently against the bench. Marcus's words echoed in futility. Finally, Marcus stopped. He closed the folder with deliberate calm. Your Honor, before I continue, I must ask, are the rules of this courtroom applied equally to everyone? The air went still. Hardwell's head snapped up, color flushing his cheeks. Are you questioning this court's integrity? I'm asking for clarity, Marcus replied, his voice calm but carrying. Because I observed others arrive late today without comment, yet I alone have been fined. I believe transparency matters, to me and to everyone here. A murmur swelled through the benches. Hardwell slammed his gavel. Silence! Mr. Ellison, you tread on dangerous ground. Your fine stands. Another word, and I will hold you in contempt. Marcus inclined his head, but his eyes locked with the judge's, unwavering. Then let the record show my objection. He stepped back, gathering his papers, but his mind was already sprinting ahead. This wasn't just about his property. It was about something bigger. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, documents spread like a battlefield. His laptop glowed with court transcripts, case records, fine amounts. Patterns emerged. Stark, undeniable patterns. Black defendants fined at triple the rate of white defendants. Minor infractions punished harshly for some, excused for others. Late arrivals ignored, unless the person was black. Marcus's stomach nodded. He'd spent his career upholding the law, but here the law itself was being bent like a weapon. He began typing, his fingers relentless. An official report. A sworn account. Evidence marked and cross-referenced. He wasn't filing a motion anymore. He was building a case. By midnight, he had 40 pages. By morning, he had a mission. The days that followed burned like wildfire. Whispers spread first. Law clerks, bailiffs, paralegals. Then came the leaks. A local journalist published an exposé. Bias on the bench, Judge Hardwell accused of unequal treatment. Phones lit up. Social media roared. People from across the county shared their stories. Fines, humiliations, a pattern that suddenly made sense when spoken aloud. Protests gathered on the courthouse steps. Signs rose, justice is blind, or should be. Inside, the Judicial Review Commission opened a formal inquiry. Years of Hardwell's rulings were dragged into the light. Numbers didn't lie. The disparities were staggering. And at the center of it all, Marcus. He hadn't wanted the spotlight, but it found him anyway. Reporters hounded him, microphones shoved at his face. He deflected what he could, focusing on the work. Every night, he combed through more files, spoke with more witnesses. The clerk who'd served under Hardwell for 20 years. The bailiff who finally admitted, I've watched it happen for years and I knew it wasn't right. One witness's testimony shook Marcus most. A single mother fined $600 for contesting a parking ticket, despite presenting proof of error. Her voice trembled as she recalled Hardwell sneering, maybe you should spend less time fighting tickets and more time working. The story went national. CNN, The Times, NPR, hashtags trended, equal justice, now, and bias on the bench. The pressure mounted until Hardwell himself cracked. In a halting public statement, he claimed his rulings were misinterpreted. Few believed him. Within weeks, he resigned. Marcus stood outside the courthouse the day after the announcement, watching workers remove Hardwell's brass nameplate from the door. The building looked the same, dull beige, coffee-stained air, but something had shifted. Dana appeared beside him, a thin smile tugging at her lips. You realize what you've done, right? You didn't just win your case, you changed the rules. Marcus shook his head slowly. The rules were always there. I just made people see when they weren't being followed. Behind them, protesters cheered. Not for him, but for what the moment meant. for what could come next. Marcus looked up at the courthouse windows, catching his reflection in the glass. He thought of his father's workshop, the smell of sawdust and oil, the lessons drilled into him. Stand up, speak truth. Don't back down. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the scales tip, not perfectly, not permanently, but in the right direction. And he knew his fight was only beginning.